And welcome to day 3 of the Valorant First Rank Qualifiers presented by Nerd Street Gamers. My name is Bach. I'll be your host throughout the entirety of today's show. Somehow they keep bringing me back. I'm not sure why. We'll be getting into the thick of the show in just a bit as our casters will come and join us, but we've got a little bit of upkeep to do first. Want to make sure you guys understand just how things are going to break down today and how things have gone thus far. So we'll go ahead and take a look at our schedule graphic to see who is going to be competing throughout the day. And it's a doozy. Long day ahead of us. Plenty of Valorant action for you guys to digest at home. On Stream A, we're going to have Gen.G versus Complexity to kick things off. T1 will be playing against the loser of that series. And then later on today, TSM versus Renegades. And the loser of that will be facing against the Boogermen. Chances for a rematch there for the Boogermen and for T1 as well. And then over on Stream B, which is anchored by the lovely Yinsu Collins, and I believe it's Lex and Vance Silly who will be joining her as well on the broadcast. You can find that channel, twitch.tv/NerdStreetGamers2. They'll be starting with Cloud9 and 100 Thieves and a banger of a match to kick things off. The loser of that will face off against Luminosity. And then later on in the day, Envy versus Sentinels, another hot and contested series, surely. The loser of that will be facing off against Dignitas, who struggled to get past spot up yesterday, but did end up finding themselves in this position where they're fighting for their tournament hopes. Again, those matches that are marked as TBD, those are elimination games. So T1, Luminosity, Dignitas, and Boogermen currently in that position where they could be knocked out of the tournament before making it into that playoff stage, which will kick off tomorrow. But enough about the teams. We've seen some of these teams competing over the last several days, and we've seen some surprises. No surprise, though, is that we've brought back the cosplay, a vice president of Reina Cosplay, I think as it was tagged. We've got Doug and we've got Simo, who will be joining me on the show this morning. Doug, I got to ask, why vice president? How did that start?
That's a fair question. I wish I had the background story for you, but
were you elected, or was it like a?
It's probably like one of those things where it's self-declared. I just woke up one morning and decided president's a big deal. I'll go with the vice president. And look, at this point, if you don't fully commit to the meme, it's probably worse. So I fully claim the title, and I will don that proudly.
Simo, what does that make you?
No, I'm just reporting the news. I am time witness Valorant news. I'm just reporting on the vice presidency. He was recently elected, had to get the info out there. I know there's plenty of elections going on right now. That was an important one that I just could not miss. It was the most important at the time. I had to deliver it, and people needed to know.
I'm glad you let me know, because prior to that, I would have just called him just Doug. Now I have to call him Vice President Doug. Or do you prefer Douglas when you're getting the official title?
Mr. Vice President Douglas.
Just Mr. Vice.
Please.
Oh, Mr. Vice President Douglas. Should I add the last
Either's
name
fine.
in too? Just go full bore.
See, that might be too much.
All right. Well, you guys know the teams that are going to be facing off, and you know what we're going to be expecting to see here. It's going to be Gen.G versus Complexity. And, you know, based on what we saw from the open qualifier, Doug, Gen.G looked fantastic, but Complexity, kind of a surprise to find them in this position.
Yeah, they've played really well, and they've taken a couple of really good teams the distance. They were the ones who eliminated NRG, that new roster with Kohler at the helm. They also took Envy all the way to map 3. So this Complexity squad has impressed, quite frankly, and we've talked about Jonah P and Sharky as recent additions to the roster. What is it that they bring? I think they, much like, and I'm sure we'll have this conversation with Sean, they bring a little extra oomph, right? A little extra fragging power, particularly Sharky, but honestly, Jonah P as well. They've both fit into those new roles very nicely, and I think that those are some of the large contributing factors to Complexity's recent success.
Timo?
I would have to say it's AGM. It's AGM all the way for Complexity. This team has a phenomenal lurker in their pocket. AGM is constantly being a nuisance, but it's really the whole team that just, for some reason, whether they're on the defense or on the attack, they just 2-man peek, 3-man peek. And then normally when you 2-man peek, you're like, okay, let's back away. Let's give the attack some space while we're on the defense. No. Complexity just push forward on the 2-man peek, and then they start to spread out and just hunt Gen.G down, or hunt whoever there is that they're playing down. T1 were like trying to slow down the pace of the match, and for some reason they just couldn't. Complexity just had the number consistently. It was a 2-0 victory over T1. I don't imagine Gen.G are going to let that happen this time around.
I mean, these are two teams that made recent roster changes. The most surprising one was probably Gen.G. We talked about how strong that core roster was and the history of those players, but recently swapping out Sean for Effie's, and the improvement almost overnight has been astronomical. On the other side, Complexity made changes, ones that probably everyone said should have been made as the team was struggling to find success. But I don't think people would be looking at it as like, wow, this was a huge get for Complexity. But it surprisingly worked out really well. Simo, you and I have covered Sharky from the early days since the beta, and it's cool to see his name dropped back in, but Sharky kind of disappeared for a little while. Are we surprised that Complexity has been able to find success with some of these names that maybe we remember from just a few months ago?
Well, I mean, you could say the same thing about Echo 8. Bits and pieces of that original roster just kind of spread out and went everywhere. And I think the same applies for the high ground team. We saw Venerated take a dip in. He unfortunately backed out. Your boy Dre, of course, on Beast Coast. And now Sharky gets a chance at spinning the wheel as well. And it seems to be working. So if it's working, why not, right? He found an opportunity. He got to trial for the team. I'm sure the teams are trialing tons of players. I'd imagine Sean even trialed for Complexity at some point. But that seems to be the best fit. I think it's just more surprising to see how well it's working as opposed to seeing him back into the fray.
Doug, Sean joined that Gen.G roster just 4 days before the open qualifier took off. That was kind of crazy, but did you anticipate this level of performance coming out from a player that was pretty much untested at this level of play?
Yeah, and here's the thing. I want to be really careful about this because I think Effie's is a stud, right? He's really good at what he does. But what I think Sean provides his Gen.G roster that they did not have as much of in the past is a little bit more fragging power in Sean. What we've seen is that that's opened up Win to do Win things and to slay a little bit more comfortably and fit into that role with a little bit more freedom, right? In a situation where Gen.G has needed somebody to step up and go absolutely bonkers, more often than not, it's been on Win's shoulders. So for Sean to come in to alleviate some of that pressure and let Win sit a little bit more comfortably has been huge for them. And look, I've mentioned this time and time again on broadcast. I firmly believe Gen.G are one of the most fundamental, intelligent rosters to play the game, right? That's been in their DNA from the very beginning. So for them to be as sound as they are and then add a little extra firepower in Sean, this Gen.G roster, in my opinion, we have not seen the best of them. They're only going to continue to get better.
It is interesting to me because you mentioned it. Effie's was not a terrible player. I still think he's very good. He's a free agent currently, and I think he's actually marked as inactive. But depending on what Gen.G decides to do, could get traded somewhere else, could end up as a free agent. I think he'd be a huge get for some of the rosters that feel like they maybe have a bit of a vacancy, like there's an emptiness there that they need to have filled. Sean's play as a Reyna has made me want to see more teams run Reyna. He doesn't always play it, but I've seen him do it on Ascent, and he does it masterfully. So I would like to see more teams kind of lean in that direction. We'll go ahead and take a look at the picks and bans for the series to get an idea of where we're going to be heading. Gen.G kicks things off with a bind band, and then we have Complexity coming in with the Haven pick. Ascent is next on the list for Gen.G. The third map, coin flip, goes to Gen.G. They'll get the defensive side of Split, which is scary for Complexity should it get to that point. Simo, do you think this map pool plays a little bit to Gen.G, or is it more towards Complexity's favor?
I think Complexity are fine with this. They don't have a lot of reps on Bind during the open qualifier. All the other maps in the pool that have been selected, they've had their chance at taking a stab. Maybe Split, not the best one, but they're quite happy with this completely. And this is a map that you can expect to see, or rather Bind is something that you're going to be able to expect to see if Complexity do end up falling. Because for whatever reason, T1 does not like to play Haven whatsoever, but for this particular series, they're totally happy with playing the maps that are available because Bind is not their strongest.
Yeah, I mean, Doug, you're looking at the map pool, and it's not exactly a big one. It's not like we have a ton of maps right now, so it's not like there's much that you could really have strengths and weaknesses on so much. So it's more or less just the order. Is the order going to end up being a problem? Because you should feel comfortable on all four maps. And even if there's one that you're less weak on, it's really going to come down to what side do you get to start on, and when do you have to play it? Looking at the early part of this series, do you think we're going to get to that map 3, Doug, or do you think that maybe this will be a 2-0 for either team?
It's tough to say. I think they both have shown proficiency on Haven. I think if we do get to map 3, Gen.G is going to feel a ton more pressure as we have Bach masterfully bow out. The thing is, Split, if we get to map 3, Split for Complexity is better, right? Quite frankly, they have a 2-0 record on that to Gen.G's 1-2. So Haven's going to be very interesting because they're both good at it. 4-1 for Gen.G, 3-1 for Complexity. The second map, Ascent, tends to lean towards Gen.G. So in my opinion, Complexity have to try, if they can, try to rob this one away from Complexity now to get to map 3, if they can.
I think Complexity would have loved to play Haven in that series against T1. They didn't even really need to because they dealt with him quite accordingly. So I got to reel things back and focus on the match at hand. I'm thinking about T1 too much because it's just so exciting. Like the fact that Complexity have managed to get here. We obviously statistically think that Gen.G will be able to kind of take the number here, but there's so many unknown factors that we don't know about this Complexity roster. How are they going to perform against one of the best teams? And already we're seeing some action pop through there in the courtyard, and it seems like Complexity off to an incredible start against Gen.G.
Yeah, and Gen.G have shown this like early push up mid on Haven a number of times. So it was tough to. It didn't look like Complexity was necessarily ready for it, but they've handled it just fine. Gen.G pushing right up the middle. They're going to get punished for it. Gen.G just down to Guimon with 9 health as well. This pistol round most certainly going in favor of Complexity. They're also going to get the spike down, so they're going to get the extra credits from that to boot. A strong start for Complexity here.
It's kind of ironic that Complexity win or are on the precipice of winning this round. Yep, there we go. It's kind of ironic that they win the round based off of a push-up mid when that is what Gen.G patented in the early days of Haven. They'd put up the wall on the left side, then they'd put up a smoke on the right side, they'd get the plant, and they'd just escape back into the courtyard. That wasn't the way that the round had ended, but it was the way that it had began. Complexity just rushed right down through the courtyard, and were able to dispatch of Gen.G. So it's kind of ironic that that's the way that that first round did unfold. But if we take a look at Haven across the board here for Complexity, their attacker side is a little bit more favored than the defensive side. So it does make a little bit more sense as to why we're starting off so hot here for Complexity.
Complexity here. Oh yeah, that drone's not going to help. He's going to get some info. Spotted one. I don't believe he spotted Win there. So Jonah P's at least going to understand that there's one playing up towards a long. Again, an aggressive early look from Gen.G. The problem is, as they try to pinch around A, that's just going to leave an opening in the middle for Complexity to work up, and that's exactly what they do.
Once again, it's this B-side hit, and they're actually going to get a player that teleports in XP3, just avoiding the sightline altogether. That spike's still going to go down. In and out he goes. I love that execution, but unfortunately the smoke is down, so they need to be careful. They're going to try to spray through. No one's actually defusing it at the current moment, but look at how much utility is on the ground there. Jonah's going to find a pick there with the shock dart. They're still trying to spray through. Sharky's got to reload the clip. It's all down to Mikael. 3 HP in a dream, and that dream turns quickly into a nightmare. That got a little dicey there for a quick second, but Gen.G did not opt in to stick the defuse. They were getting sprayed down. I think there might have been some window of opportunity to just try to, stick something in, but Jonah P with the shock darts would have found them regardless. So a solid round there from Complexity. Almost kind of went sour there for a quick sec, but now it's the gun round for Gen.G. Let's see what they're capable of.
Oh, and that set, it's a chaos play, right? Like, just dead sprint into B, get the spike down as soon as you can, and then get out. We actually, I imagine we'll see Gen.G run a very similar exact on when they're on the attacking side, and that's all it is throw utility, throw cover as much as you can, and just fire into the smoke and see if you can catch anybody. I think Guimon had a really good opportunity to take away that anchor of Ohai with the Bulldog in the window, wasn't able to deliver the shots with the Sheriff, and then ultimately everything else just went sideways. But that piece right there, what we saw from Complexity, it's really at best a 60-40, maybe 55-45. That's a coin toss is what it is. They just relied on the gun advantage to execute it.
Oh, they actually spot 2 there with the Owl Drone. I don't know if that's enough information for Gen.G to pull off their resources, but to be fair, there's not a whole lot that they need to pull off, in my opinion. They've got 3 standing here. Win and Sean, that's definitely who you want to be on this side, supported by Mikael. Sean and company waiting for this hit on the site. They're going to smoke off Link, and unfortunately the paranoia doesn't work out. Sean gets to safety. That's going to be the denial, at least of the push temporarily. Win comes in from the long side. I don't think they anticipated him being there, but now it's all down to Sharky. He's made this competitive. He can get that spike down and upgrade the weaponry. This is a little scary for Gen.G. 30 seconds, Sharky's going to hightail it over towards the C site.
Yeah, and they're just going to pass right by each other. Player 1 and Guimon, reasonably, because of everything that went down, were cheating over towards that A side, but Sharky actually doubles back. He's going to be walking right into their hands, right into their crosshairs. The other problem is he doesn't have enough time to go anywhere else. He's going to have to get the spike down, and as soon as that thing starts, Gen.G knows exactly where Sharky is. They're going to swing, but they don't take the fight together. It does not matter. Guimon's able to take care of the 1v1, take care of Sharky, and get the defuse. Gen.G are on the board.
I still think for complexity, that was the best possible case scenario. I mean, it could have been even better to obviously win the round. But the fact that they brought it within 2, that was an expensive round for Gen.G to lose. Complexity are statistically, every team is fine with losing that 3rd round. It's the round that you have, less than desirable hardware. You're coming in with SMGs or Bulldogs or whatever. But the fact that they brought it down to 2, look at how Gen.G are buying up this round. There's a Spectre. There's likely going to be Win, maybe... he's 1 point away from the Blade Storm, so look at that. They're setting up for the control down the long side. Complexity aren't going to fight for this, so Win's going to have the Blade Storm for the round. That's the exact way that you want to save this economy.
We've seen a couple of times now Gen.G being willing to push a little aggressively on A. Last time it was Win who just kind of posted up in that corner alongside Sean. This time they just went in to get the orb. But they have shown presence down that for all 4 rounds now. Well, the first round. Notwithstanding, again, because of the set piece that we talked about, but they've shown willingness to play that side aggressively. Complexity, again, going to be sniffing their way up the middle. Nobody's technically home right now. There are a couple of people in the vicinity, but nobody's there. You see the smoke that's going to be coming out from both sides. Block those cuts. Excuse me, one was the smoke they owned with Paranoia, but it didn't matter. Sharky getting the best of Win, and Ohai does as well through the smoke.
How many times are they going to run this back for complexity? Teleport in, spike down, teleport out, I'm safe. Recon Bolt's going to make things a little bit more difficult, but they're looking to try to get the fight over to Gen.G, but so far it's looking good for complexity. Down to Sean. He's got the Empress. If he really starts to pop off, he can decide to use it, but Sharky, the shot there behind the box. Complexity secure round number 4. So far, so good for the boys in blue.
Complexity carries a 61% win rate on attack. This is the side that they prefer on this map, at least as far as numbers go.
So do Gen.G.
On the flip side, for Gen.G, yeah, exactly. It's a 64% on the defense, so they prefer this side as well. I think it's been very interesting to see how when in positions of strength for both of these teams, they're willing to stick to what they know, to what they do well. Gen.G hits that opening round right up the middle. That's, again, a comfort play for them. For Complexity, we've seen that set piece right outside B twice now. That chaos play that has fortunately gone in their favor. And it looks like Gen.G is prepared for it. That's 2 times now that we've seen Guimon go up and try to get on top of the mid-generator and take care of the window. And both times he's dropped. So this is not something that Gen.G is not expecting, not something that they don't know how to handle. They just haven't been able to execute on it.
Let's look at the couple of set plays that Gen.G have provided us, at least for the first couple of rounds. Heavy presence towards that A side. In fact, orb control has been probably the most important thing for Gen.G. And yeah, they got the Blade Storm, but unfortunately Win was out before it could even start to cook up. And so now they're anticipating more action towards the B site, and we obviously know Haven to be the C site extraordinaire map game. But somehow GMD tries to push forward. The rest of the team have been located in the garage side, and they'll be dispatched down to 2 final players. Gen.G, even though on the eco, are saying, hey, listen, we anticipate action towards the left side of the map. Yes, Complexity went to try to hit that A site once before, but considering how often we've been threatened in the middle of the map and the left side, we need to try to provide some presence here. And you might see the same thing this time around. Look how aggressive Win and Sean are prepared to play. There's an opt-in play here for Gen.G, and Win is looking to try to get an early pick to nullify the aggression from Complexity.
Well, and to try to stop some of the bleeding, right? That's 4 rounds to 1. The one that Gen.G were able to steal away was a defuse at the end of the day. So you're investing a bit. You see 3 members of Gen.G drop down to 0 credits. It almost looks like they were expecting that B hit again, but nobody's home right now. It's a much slower start here for Complexity.
And to be fair, that's it's the correct play. They're respecting the gun round. Fortunately for them, they are about to get a visit from Sean. He peeks in through the window. He's in quite deep. Oh, did they hear that? They had to have heard that. He dropped down. He made a noise. Maybe not. Maybe I'm just hearing things. But Complexity, they're going to work their way up through the A site. There's going to be a couple of cyber cages and a camera and some tripwires to stop them temporarily. but we'll have to pay attention to how Sean plays the flank because there's a turret there that'll spot him once they realize that the A side hit is coming in for
You should run.
Oh, they're going to use the lockdown as well. They're investing everything to get onto this site. They're going to drop smokes. Just waiting it out, knowing that Gen.G's comfortable sitting on the cusp of it at least for a little bit and then backing off as time goes down. Yeah, nobody was detained, and that's going to be the entrance for them to get onto the side. Sean is still going to be waiting around the flank. The turret has been taken out, so Sova is going to know that there's somebody back there. Meanwhile, the spike has gone down on the site as Complexity assumed their post-plant positions.
We do have the defense flanking in from the attacker spawn. We are going to have to pay attention to Jonah P, who's slow lurking through the courtyard. We'll have to pay attention back to the site as he is starting to sprint on over there. Now going to start to push in. Sean is paranoid, so he can't really move too far. They've got a crossfire set up. Psych! That's player one. Now it's down to 2 final players. The time it has taken for Jonah P to flank all the way around, it's going to be a little bit tough now for XP3 to survive, but he finds 2! And Jonah on the flank, it's down to the 1v1, and Complexity takes it home.
Oh, it was a slow burn, a scenic route all the way around the map, but that was exactly what they needed to win that round. Jonah P's flank was perfect. And look, it was going to be an explosive round nonetheless, right? We saw the setup. It was a straight-up 5v5. Nobody had lost any weapons, personnel. The ultimates had been used. We talked about the positions on the flank like pieces on a chessboard, and it ended up being the last one that proved to be the difference maker. That and that nice 2K from XP3 really opened it up for Complexity and kept it even. It did not look good, but again, they held fast. Complexity looking very strong in the opening moments of this best of 3.
And what a tight recon bolt there. I didn't even know that lineup existed. That's such a small sliver just to shoot that recon dart through. Recon bolt, sorry. So a new look here from Complexity. That's going to be an opening pick here for Gimon. That's super important. Paranoia is going to try to help him get away, but the Lear, of course, is going to make things a little difficult. Sean actually gets injured, so I would have loved him to heal up there instead, but of course, now since they have a lot of membership towards that back site, a shock dart finds Sharky. He was injured, and this eco is looking spectacular for Gen.G, but it is brought down to 3, and likely that spike will head over to another site since the C site is so difficult to take.
Smoke going up in garage. Complexity still mulling over the opportunity, the possibility of working their way towards the C site. And it looks like it's not going to be nearly as aggressive as we saw in the opening moments of the round. A much slower, more methodical approach. But it looks like it's going to be an approach that way nonetheless. And with the clock continuing to tick, they're running out of options. The recon bolt was destroyed, so they know where they're going to be. A little shock dart to try to clear the way as a smoke goes down from garage and Ohai dashes in. The problem is there are 2 members of Complexity who are there, but they're not around for long. Sean and Mikhail are both taken out. Complexity assume full control of the map in a gun round, and they continue to stick it to Gen.G.
Yeah, Gen.G still made it competitive, though, on the eco round. The heroics there from Gimon. He finds some lucky shots there with the Stinger. Not the most reliable weapon, if I'm going to be honest, but nevertheless, it was still used to find a pick. And then also managed to get Sharky a little low, which benefited Mikhail, who shock darted that cubby, which is where Complexity were all huddled up, trying to find an opportunity to break open onto that C site. Then all Complexity did was just wait it out and then reposition and try to hit that C site again, which is obviously they had the better weapons. They were able to find the advantage. But still, that's 2 weapons out of the hands of Complexity, and you need every advantage you can find to try to stop this bleeding. 6-1 is not a scoreline you'd want to really be in at the current moment.
Or really expect, to be honest. And thank you. I apologize. I know I mentioned that was a gun round at the end. My mistakes. It was an eco, as Simo so eloquently put. Nonetheless, the outcome the same. Complexity with a 5-round lead. Once again, looking to hit that play. A B, the telly's in. XP3 is going to get the spike down. They're going to back right out. This time, Ohai is able to get an opening frag. Mikhail's able to trade it back with the Hunter's Fury, knowing that that's where that set was going to be. And we're dropped down to a 4v4 with the spike down.
I mean, it's really the best counter that they could have asked for, right? They knew that he was going to just teleport in and teleport back out. But now this is, once again, we're in that same position. They see a player up above, Gimon's going to help out, and now they have to be a little bit more active as Gen.G are starting to take out some of the members, but it's all down to 2 final players. They've got a Hunter's Fury to counter it. They're going to try to get a little bit more active, but it's both duelists still alive and still participating in the defusal of this spike. Shock darts are left. Recon Bolt's going to help out, but he needs to get active. One fight's going to come easy, at least temporarily, but the shot's good. But does he have enough time to defuse? It's up to half. The seconds are going to be close, but it's not close enough. Complexity sneak another round away.
Jonah P being able to play that game of chicken, essentially, right outside of the B door and finally laying the shots on the spike defusal won them that round, right? And it was just that sliver of time where he wasn't being challenged. Just that split second that he had to pop out, take care of the person defusing the spike. That's all it took, that half a second to give him that opportunity to get that kill. That was so well played by Complexity. And again, Gen.G looked more prepared that time. They invested the Hunter Suri. Guimon was able to get a kill up on top of Generator, but it was still not enough, unfortunately, for Gen.G. Complexity with a 6-round lead. They've got a Blade Storm to work with as well. Now Gen.G do have some as far as ultimates go, but things looking dire for Gen.G.
Still a gun round for them. They are on max loss bonus, so it's not completely horrible. And they've got some ultimates to work with, as you had highlighted. Guimond already a little low. The shots through the garage doors definitely put a number on him. Complexity are more than happy with playing the waiting game. We've seen this time and time again, and then they decide to start slow move to a different site. We haven't seen their Haven because we saw, I believe it was Bind and Ascent up against T1 yesterday, or sorry, the day before rather. And this is the map that Complexity prefer to play, and to be honest, I think we're seeing why. Their B-side hits have been looking very scary and strange to deal with. And normally that's what you expect from a B-side hit, right? We're not looking at that this round, but like it's usually just get in, get out, and play the game of chicken like you highlighted. But now it's going to be the A site. Gen.G have anticipated a late round C hit, so now they're going to have to try to pinch in from all sides. We're going to be looking at a flank coming in from the bottom for Guimond, while the rest of the team will funnel in through Link.
Oh, and look, that turret was smoked off, so Jonah P has to back up a little bit. You can generally rely on the turret to take care of that for you, but it's not going to matter. Guimond trying to get the best of it. He got taken out at the end of the day by Jonah P. And oh, Win gets taken out as well up top. Oh, High's able to get the best of him. Members of Gen.G continue to drop like flies. Complexity have firm control of the site. The spike doesn't even matter at that point. Complexity is just able to wipe the floor with Gen.G.
I just want to say that you talk a little bit about in the pregame that Sean alleviates some of the pressure from Win to perform. Well, Win himself is not having the best game, and I understand that some of these looks have been rough, but in a lot of the Blade Storm rounds, he's one of the first to die. He doesn't even get to use the Blade Storm. That's the second time that he's just been sneezed on and he falls apart before he can even send a knife out. So definitely a little bit rougher. I know that he might have been anticipating maybe like a frag or two before he falls, but that is definitely a problem when you're relying on that ultimate to find a pick or two to open up a site, especially on an eco. Blade Storms can be so impactful, so it's a little unfortunate to see Win have a little bit of a rougher game, but Complexity, I can't deny, something's in the water. They're cooking up something different.
We talked prior to the map starting about how Sharky and Jonah P give Complexity a different flavor. This flavor right now is proving to be all that Gen.G can handle. Win. It wasn't with the Blade Storm, as you mentioned, but he was able to get an important opening pick with the Operator. We haven't been able to say that very much at all, Steamo, but Sharky trades it right back. Complexity, they just trade back every single time.
There we go. That's what I'm talking about. Win finds the pick from range. Now it's down to one final player. Gen.G have been able to stop this strange, slow-moving push, which, to be honest, Complexity are coming from varying different angles. They came from B, they came from Garage, and they had the spike carried up from long, and they were able to stop all of those point offense looks from Complexity. So Gen.G desperately needing that round, find it in the bag. With 2 rounds remaining, can they get 2 more? That is a big question. If they lose this round, they're forcing up, as you can see. They just reset the loss bonus. So if they lose this one, they're not going to have a lot of credits moving into that last and final round.
Yeah, things looking dire here for Gen.G, but as you mentioned, an important round win to get that off their back, to try to stop some of the bleeding and to hopefully build a little bit of momentum. No Operator on the side of Complexity, but there is going to be a Blade Storm. Going to get smoked off. It's going to be an early look down C long for Complexity, and they have not fully committed, at least quite yet, but they're certainly creeping that way. Yikes.
Oh, that's so good. That's such, yeah, I want to say lucky, but Sean just holding the angles. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to pre-fire. I'd imagine a lot of pros would be, oh, he's wall hacking. Sean's wall. I've seen too many watch parties to know that when that happens, a pro player in the scene, that's a wall hack. Okay, confirmed. Got it. Understood. But still, that great opening pick. It is answered back. And once again, guess what complexity they're looking for? Yep, it's that standard B-side hit. They're interested in it, and the Empress popped. That means that Sharky's got not a lot of time to make sure that this is an impactful ultimate.
XP3 has the spike, and he has entry into it. But they're thinking about it for so long. There it is. He tellies in. He's going to get the spike down. Once again, this is the exact same play. There is no Hunter's Fury this time from Gen.G to be able to try to eliminate that before the spike goes down. Furthermore, the smokes have gone up from complexity towards the C site.
Oh,
Jonas
wow.
playing a bit more aggressively.
They condition them to believe that they get off the site. Guess who's on the site? It's complexity. They conditioned round after round after round to say, hey, we're going to play off site. Guess what complexity do? They got a lurk from AGM. He lurks all the way from the A site. Sharky takes the garage approach. And Gen.G are like, where did they come from? They always run away to the courtyard. They always do that. A solid round from complexity. I love the way they played that attack. Now we see why they are truly the best on Haven.
And for Gen.G, we're all of a sudden we're looking down the barrel of a 9-3 at best, right? That's certainly not what I think either of us would have expected going into this map, but nonetheless, that's where we are. Furthermore, it's not going to be full guns for Gen.G. Sean's going to have a Sheriff. I believe I saw a Spectre in there as well, and a couple of rifles to work with the aggressive push down C long, this time paying off. Gen.G on the board.
They desperately needed that information as well. Unfortunately, the neural theft doesn't give a lot. It doesn't tell them if they're stacking towards the A side, if they're waiting in the sewers, but at least for the time being, Mikael can get a head start. So he's already going to start to lurk through. He's going to use the owl drone, as we can see on the mini map there. But now, considering all of that is going to be cleared out, that gives the information to Gen.G to say, okay, they're going to be over towards that C side, and that's why they use the ultimate to spot them out. Yeah, look, I saw 3 there. So this is so much information for Gen.G. Let's see how they play it with the rest of the round.
They still have heavy presence over on B. And Mikael is still over on A, but the Hunter's Fury has been used. Yeah, Sean gets taken out. He was one of the lines of defense over on C. Now members are starting to rotate from Gen.G over to C. Keep a close eye and win on your minimap, folks. There is going to be an alarm bot in case he commits to the rotation, but not much else. Player 1 is able to get one on the side, looking for the second, but he's cleaned up by the frenzy of all things as Oh-Hi gets the best of him. The spike sounds like it's going to begin to get... Yeah, it got dropped. It's going to get picked up and get planted with 30 seconds left on the clock.
Oh, win. Oh, he gets shot by the turret. Oh, that's so unfortunate. And unfortunately, we do have Oh-Hi who's sitting on the site. Gen.G are starting to come through. The shock dart finds its mark, so now it's down to the 2v3. Complexity are really trying to deal with Win, but they have to worry that he's been delaying the spike plant the entire time. That's going to be a recon bolt. They have to walk away. They have to run away. They know that there's a player playing point on the top. Now the defuse starts to come through again. They need to push in. They need to find the frag. They find one. It's down to the 1v1. Win now has to push in. This has gone so wrong for Gen.G. Jonah just needs to stall. He goes back to the corner. The spike is sticking. It's up to half. The shot's good from Jonah. And Complexity dominate in the first half.
Switching sides.
Oh, you mentioned that not going well for Gen.G at all, and Simo, you were absolutely right. It was a good situation, right? They dropped it down to a 3v2. Both members of Complexity were down C long, and Gen.G had presence on the site. But Win ended up getting pushed away. He had to back off, and then Complexity wisely says, all right, we don't need to worry about him anymore. We can take care of the defusal. The problem was when they invested their attention, when they turned their eyes towards the spike getting diffused, Win did not rotate fast enough. Unfortunately, did not continue to apply pressure to that backside. By the time he got back down C long, the site was Complexities, and they had everything that they wanted to drop down to a 1v1, and the spike continued to go down. There just wasn't enough time for Gen.G to do anything there. Complexity played that so well.
It all boils down, I think, to some extent on this pistol. If Complexity are able to stave off this eventual A-site push, they'll find themselves at 11-2, and potentially that second round conversion means map point. And that'll have to be 10 in a row for Gen.G to overcome. But we're not quite there yet. AGM is the first contact point here. Nano Swarm is about to be thrown down and is definitely going to injure. So they pull off. They don't get the spike planted. And the headshot from XP3 Gen.G. Oh, this is such a rough sight to look at. And now the entirety of Complexity have arrived. The spike needs to be picked up, and they're still going to commit to the site.
Well, they have a couple of members that are too far in for them to back out at this point anyway. I don't know that they have much of a choice. Player 1 and Win are able to get one apiece, but Sharky trades it back out, as does AGM. He's still up in heaven causing problems. Sean finally able to get the best of him. It's going to drop down to a 2v2. A little bit of healing, and the spike continues to go down. Win holding this tight corner. Doesn't have a ton of bullets to work with, but XP3 doesn't have much health to work with either, just narrowly. Missing getting Sean's heads. Win swings, Win wins. That gunfight is going to drop down to a 1v1. He knows exactly where XP3 is. Remember, folks, XP3 has 4 health to work with. He faked the telly, and he's going to go all the way around. He might catch Win slipping here.
23 seconds. 7 to defuse. Here it comes. Win anticipates the walk down the stairs. Of course, XP3 was dangerously injured, so that was definitely a 1v1 that Win was supposed to win. It would have been incredible to see XP3 come out with the clutch, but they desperately needed that on the side of Gen.G. They find the pistol. They're looking for that second round conversion now. But Complexity are forcing up. And to be quite honest, they can afford to. They have got so much rounds that they can bleed out because they're so close to closing this one out. So if Gen.G get caught off guard, the economy is going to be in shambles.
Not just the economy, but really their chances of winning this map. They're down as far as they are. Every little mistake just feels amplified when the deficit is this large. AGM got a little cue. He knows where they are. Oh, he waited and he swings, but they were expecting it anyway. Jonah P is able to provide a little bit of backup and get the trade, but he's going to get paranoia. It looks like they're pushing the matter onto him, but he wins it again.
Oh, no. It does all bring down to one, though. A flank from Ohai. He breaks the trip, and now they know exactly where he is. So for Complexity, they still made it at least a little bit expensive for Gen.G. We'll see now if Ohai is able to find an upgrade. He does, so things are a little bit different now. They know exactly where he's coming from. They tag him up, so now Gen.G can get into the proper positions to anticipate the push forward. Remember, there is a tailwind, and we've seen a lot of Jets just tailwind in and disregard the common law of physics. And that really proves to be a problem for some teams, and unfortunately, it's Win that's a problem for Ohai. Solid rounds here from Gen.G, and they're just holding on by a thread. They're just trying to take it round by round. We understand how big of a hill this is to overcome, but now it's gone from 8 rounds in a row to 6 rounds in a row, and they can afford to bleed a couple along the way. So things are looking a little bit brighter for Gen.G fans.
They can't bleed a ton, but they, as you said, can certainly give up a little bit. But the thing is, with how hot Complexity has been coming into this tournament, really kicking off this map, you've got to be really careful about how much freedom you give them. Gen.G is going to have 2 rifles to work with, but it's going to be Spectres the rest of the way. Oh, looks like they're going to push up into A, but nobody's home. They should. All right, now members of Complexity are rotating over.
Drone gives them a lot of information, but we have to recall that this is, not really the best round for Complexity. They've got Sheriffs. They forced up last round. They lost those weapons. Gen.G should be able to dispatch of Complexity quite handily. So far, Jonah P starts with the first opening pick, and it's answered back in kind by Gen.G, just one after another. They can't push forward. It boils down to XP3 once again. Once again, he's got a pistol in his hand. They know exactly where he's located now. Shock darts galore. They're going to send it flying. Should be around here for Gen.G, but before that, XP3 still can make it a little bit more competitive at least. Iman will find him. And now Gen.G, all they got to do is find 5 more rounds, and they're all caught up. So for Complexity, this is their first gun round. They've got an operator in the hands of Ohai, and so does Win. So he manages to buy that up for himself as well, managing their economy accordingly. 5 rounds. That's all they need to catch up. It's a long ways away, but it starts with this first gun round. If Gen.G can overcome this one, things are looking real good in the catch-up game.
Yeah, especially when you consider that player 1 is not buying up. It looks like he's going to take that Spectre in, as is Mikhail with the Bulldog. They had the opportunity. They had the option to buy up if they wanted to, but they don't. Ohai is going to get leered off instantly, not even going to get a chance to make that operator sing in the opening moments of that round as he tries to hold down this angle. Oh my gosh, he rips off Win's face.
Oh my goodness, that hurts a lot. The fact that it was also a penetration shot, it had to go through the wood first before it sent Win to the graveyard. That hurts. Hurts a lot because there's some damage drop off as it goes through, right? The fact that it managed to find its mark is crazy. And Win was holding the angle. There's no peeker's advantage in Valorant. That's a tough pill to swallow. That operator is likely going to be carried out, but pay attention to Jonah P. He's going to be flanking from behind. He's got a tripwire to deal with, but at least for the time being, Gen.G are pushing onto this B side and taking a page out of Complexity's book.
Yeah, but look at how Complexity played around the flank. They rotated all the way around A like we saw previously, and they were able to catch them. The spike has not gone down yet. He's waiting. Player one is outside. Has not fully committed.
Oh,
As
Jonah.
an operator, if I'm not mistaken, Jonah continuing to cause fits back from behind. They're trapped right now. The spike can't move.
Yeah, they've
30
got good
seconds
angles
left.
all around. Sharky's just waiting for an opportunity as it's going to be Iman, I believe, that pushes up. Smoke's going down. He's going to try to give player one a little bit of cover, but he hasn't given himself cover. It's all down to player one, and he's going to start to chase Sharky. He may be looking to hightail this spike over towards the C side, but look at how
10
Complexity
seconds
are
left.
playing. They're playing so intelligent because they know where he's located. They started to push in from all angles. They know exactly where he's been the whole time. They knew he was in the cubby, and from that, they played off of that. So very well played by Complexity around that. Gen.G, of course, understandable why they lost. You know, eventually Complexity is going to catch up on the weaponry. But now that that buffer is slowly starting to slip away, so Gen.G need another good round here.
Well, and it's going to be tough. Sean isn't going to have a bunch of credits to work with. Neither is Win. The investment for the operator hurting a bit now. Sean was able to get something. I don't know that they're going to be able to buy up very much for Win at all, but he does have that Blade Storm to help kind of balance some of that out. We've seen how a Blade Storm can really flip an entire round on its head. We also mentioned that Win has had a hard time on this map with the Blade Storm not being able to be as effective with it as he would like, but he's going to get an opportunity, and this is probably the biggest of the map.
That Blade Storm is incredibly important. He's going to start to tailwind in, but of course we see that right side sight paranoia. That's quite standard. Win has another shot at redemption, but it's not going to be today. Complexity have a flawless round as they dispatch Gen.G and are sitting at map point. Doug, this is a scary sight for Gen.G fans.
Oh, it absolutely is. And remember, this is a good map for both teams, right? It's not like Gen.G is 26-0 and Complexity has never won on this map. This is good for both squads, but the manner in which Complexity has gotten the best of Gen.G to this point, as you said, is terrifying. Jonah's 22-8, right? He's having himself a field day with Gen.G right now, and Gen.G just hasn't been able to get very much going at all. Yeah, Sean and Win are leading the scoreboard for Gen.G, but it's been slow. It's been tough treading for that entire squad. Even when they have the tools at their disposal, like you mentioned, the Blade Storm just wasn't able to get anything going. For Complexity to win that round in flawless fashion hurts.
This A site hit is going to be relatively uncontested. Complexity may be anticipating a little bit more presence towards the B site, but we've seen it execute like this before. In fact, I've seen Steel do something similar. Lockdown in that nook and cranny, and they cannot get that spike down. So it's actually going to buy a lot of time for Complexity. They'll be able to get onto the site temporarily. And now Gen.G, they had so much presence, they've got to reset. This A site hit is not going to be as effective as it once was, but to be fair, Complexity still haven't committed any resources towards the A side. With the smoke, that should be a telltale sign. I need support.
They're going to flood onto the site yet again, this time getting much cozier in their positions, and Darth's going to give him away. He's going to have to relocate as the Hunter Sphere comes out to try to take out anyone on the side of Gen.G. Nobody's going to get
30 seconds
cleaned
left.
up as player one begins to
Spike
plant the
planted.
spike. The timer resets, and now these two squads, it's going to be straight up 5v5 for the site.
I like the use of the turret here. They're trying to use it to try to gather some information, see who peeks and see who swings. But yeah, Win, turn around. There's a player that dropped down. There's a couple of players that dropped down. And now they're smoked off. The recon bolt's going to reveal a lot of the location of the players, but they're fighting a hard-fought battle here from Gen.G. It's not going to be hard enough. Complexity slam dunk Gen.G in the first map of the series. 13-5. What an impressive performance from Complexity. It all started off on their... Well, in fact, Gen.G got side selection there. So the fact that Complexity started off on the attack really boded well for them, finishing off a solid first half, 10-2. And then moving on, it started off a little bit rougher in that second half, but once guns got into their hands, Complexity were able to really keep Gen.G at bay.
Yeah, and Gen.G didn't have much of a leash to work with, unfortunately, in the second half. The deficit that they found themselves staring up was so great that you had to not play perfect Valorant the entire way through, but pretty dang close, and it was just difficult to find themselves in that position in the second half of the map. Furthermore, Complexity played the first half really well on the attacking side. They were able to keep Gen.G guessing. You called the way that they were able to play mind games on Gen.G, conditioning them to play outside of B and then smack them while they're on the site later on. So they just played that very well. I think Complexity, you mentioned there's something in the water, right? Something a little bit different about this squad. They're coming out swinging, and I mean, they just gave Gen.G everything that they could handle.
Yeah, those B-side hits were incredibly impressive. I'm going to imagine that when we come back from break, Bach is going to have a lot to say about that. He's been sitting from the sidelines just gnawing at the bone, waiting to attack this map because it's a shocker. 13-5 against Gen.G. That's, this Complexity roster had a lot of question marks moving in to the open qualifier, moving into the closed qualifier, and there's been a lot of interesting things going on. Ladies and gentlemen, I know you're excited about this series, and so are we, but we have to throw to a quick little break. When we come back, map number 2, picked by Gen.G, is going to be Ascent, with Complexity picking the side selection to start. We'll be right back after this.